Howdy folks, Chief Meteorologist Nick Lilly here taking a look at the tropical update for May 27th of 2019. Whew, getting closer and closer to hurricane season, aren't we? Brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. I will say this, we had Andrea a little bit earlier this season, so that's already cat's out of the bag there. We had the forecast from the National Hurricane Center calling for 9 to 15 named storms, and we've already had one of them. So we've got 8 to 14 left. Of course, Andrea wasn't a hurricane, so that doesn't change the hurricane number or the major hurricane numbers here. Colorado State calling for 13, 5, and 2. Your average year is 12, 6, and 3. So we're calling for about an average season from NOAA and from the folks at Colorado State. Generally, this time of the year, we're looking into the Gulf of Mexico, the Caribbean, and then just off of the East Coast. Andrea actually formed probably right about there, so it was just outside of the climatological norm, and that's for June. We're still in May, so generally speaking, we look in kind of the same places. We just don't tend to have this bullseye here, although the reason we have this bullseye here is because generally we get little systems that still sneak through the southeast into June, and little ends of them can get kind of clipped off and end up down into kind of the elbow of Florida here or just off of the East Coast. We'll be watching that as we head through probably the next 7 to 10 days. Now, once we get into July, more on that in a second. Once we get into July, then we start looking out into the Caribbean and things change a little bit for us in terms of where we're looking. Out into the Gulf and the Caribbean right now, we still have the Central American gyre. You can see kind of the main area of circulation down here. In fact, we can slide off to the south. The main area of circulation in here, and there's a whole lot of convection down here, and that's just a fancy weather term for showers and thunderstorms, and you can see that by the yellows and the reds if you're not used to looking at this map. But most of the action has now shifted onto the west side of Central America here, which is good news for us. We always watch the northeastern quadrant of this Central American gyre, this big area of rotation out here associated with very widespread showers and thunderstorms. We tend to look up here. And we had a little flare-up of thunderstorms, and we still kind of do. We'll keep tabs on that, but generally speaking, the computer models aren't doing much with that. And then out into the open Atlantic, I will say this, it's just too early in the year for us to worry about anything out here. You can actually see that we've got stuff moving from west to east. Generally, once we get into the, the meat and taters of hurricane season, stuff moves from east to west out here and toward the United States. As we look at the 500 millibar isobar map, again, this is looking at about 18,000 feet. We got a ridge of high pressure. It settles just off to the southeast of Mississippi here, and it kind of hangs out there for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So we tend to go a little more zonal down here, which actually is going to boost our rain chances, I think, as we head toward the end of the week, since this ridge is falling apart. The other good thing with this ridge being down here is it's a good fullback. It just kind of deflects anything that would be out here from moving our direction, and it kind of strengthens up a little bit and starts to slide back off to the west, and will eventually really sink its teeth into parts of Texas, I think, as we head into the beginning of June. But notice nothing as you head out into the Caribbean or even into the open Atlantic out here that would signify anything of, any significance. We can look at the 700 millibar moisture 850 vorticity map now, and this one's a little different. We look in the grayed out areas. That's where we've got dry air in the mid-levels. Usually that means no showers and thunderstorms there. It's pretty straightforward. And then in the areas where you have the greens and the yellows and eventually into the oranges and reds, that's areas of low-level circulation. And you can see our Central American gyre on here actually shows up pretty good. But notice that it doesn't really move, and any movement that it does have is actually to slide up into parts of Mexico. It never really gets out over the Caribbean or over the Gulf of Mexico, which is good news for us. So again, there's your look at your tropical update for May 27th of 2019, brought to you by the good folks at Pine Belt Gutters. I will say, for this time of the year, it is still a little too early to be worrying about stuff in the tropics, even though we just had Andrea. The good news is there's nothing out there to speak of right now, and it looks like over the course of about the next week, things are going to remain pretty quiet.